Welcome everybody to the Week 5 college football rankings. Number 25, Tulane. They've been here since the beginning as they are the best and only group of 5 team in this video. They're hanging in there alright, and they made it through 2 weeks without Michael Pratt, who returned this past weekend. Pratt passed for 193 yards and 2 touchdowns on a 78% completion rate in a spectacular return. But like I've said from the start of the season, I'm loving this defense. They got 4 interceptions. They are the leading defense in the American and are really scary. Number 24, Washington State. New to my rankings this season is Washington State. I could rank them higher in my top 15, expect them to win all the games these next 3 weeks, but I won't because I'm still not a believer in them just yet. They played amazing though, and that may be an understatement. Cameron Ward passed for over 400 yards and Josh Kelly looked great catching 2 remarkable touchdowns. They nearly allowed a comeback in the 4th quarter, but their offense had already done so much this game. Very good win for the Cougars. Number 23, Miami. Another great win for Miami as they beat Temple 41-7. Hurricane football is officially back, and this is the best they've been in a minute. Tyler Van Dyke passed for 220 yards and 3 touchdowns in his hometown, while Parrish ran for 139 yards. In total, this team had over 300 rushing yards and are one of 6 undefeated teams in the ACC. Every game, they make look easy, but Coach Cristobal stated they left meat on the bone. I love how visible this team's heart is, and it doesn't look like they will slow down. Number 22, Colorado. Their momentum came to a screeching halt in Oregon as they lost 42-6. The offense only had 13 first downs all game and couldn't score until the end, with their PAT getting blocked. It wasn't a good look for Colorado as all of their weaknesses were exploited by Oregon. Oregon ran through their defense, getting 240 yards on 38 carries. This is also not to mention that Sanders got sacked 7 times. It's only their first loss of the season, but I don't know if they're going to be able to solve their weak linebackers, offensive line, and defensive lines this year. Number 21, Clemson. I'm keeping them firmly at an 84 rating, but won't move them up despite looking like a better team than Florida State at times this game, as this is another tough loss at home. The Tigers fall to 2-2, which is really crazy. And the thing is, they're still a great team. Cade Klubnik played great outside of that one costly fumble. He passed for 283 yards, scored 2 touchdowns, and kept this game competitive when their run game was only decent. But the positive is that their run defense is so good. It may be because FSU doesn't have the best run game, but they were held to 22 rushing yards, and Florida State was scared. Clemson is a top 15 team in talent, but if they can't make a field goal in close games, then they have to be outside my top 20. Number 20, Oregon State. This was a bad loss to Washington State. Oregon State started off poorly with allowing a 63-yard touchdown. The defense worsened, and they gave up 352 yards in the first half alone. They were down 21-38 in the 4th quarter and only lost by 3 points after failing an onside kick. DJ Uiagalelei passed for 198 yards and rushed for 61, which isn't bad, but it definitely wasn't enough. They couldn't gain momentum, and their defense was porous, but they can catch Utah in a short week hopefully. Number 19, Kansas State. Like I predicted last week, Kansas State bounced back, and it was against a notable opponent in Central Florida. Plumlee for the Golden Knights is still hurt, and the Wildcats ruined their Big 12 debut. This offensive line for the Wildcats was great, and Giddens was phenomenal, rushing for over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, while also catching 8 catches for 86 yards. Will Howard also played fair, I thought, but their bread and butter is definitely this one game. I wonder why Treshaun Ward didn't play. He was good last week, but Giddens has taken this role perfectly. Number 18, Ole Miss. I'm not lowering Ole Miss's rating, but they played pretty bad. Not even the team, just Jackson Dart specifically. He made many bad passes. What we've seen until this point is that he likes to run a lot, and that did not work against this Alabama defense. He had an interception, no touchdowns, and was sacked 5 times. Ole Miss themselves had 4 sacks, and I was pleased with how well this defensive line looked. They were very aggressive. It's just that the DBs fell apart, and Alabama was able to win 24-10. Number 17, Texas A&M. Texas A&M gets another impressive win, this time in Auburn. They scored 3 touchdowns in the second half, 2 of which from Max Johnson, who came in after Connor Weigman sprained his leg. He got to throw a touchdown pass to his own brother, which was cool. Amari Daniels had a 79-yard run, and Le'Veon Moss had 97 rushing yards in total. They slowed a little bit at the end, but a win is a win, and they got a big game next week in Jerry's World. Number 16, Tennessee. There's a reason I kept Tennessee high after their loss to Florida. They're a really great team. This weekend, they obliterated UTSA, leading 31-0 at halftime. Milton had an 81-yard run and passed for over 200 yards, scoring 3 touchdowns in total. Meanwhile, Dylan Sampson rushed for 139 yards, scoring 2 touchdowns, and looks to be the running back 1 moving forward. I also admire the Volunteers sticking with Milton though. He's a good leader, and Tennessee is really good again. Number 15, Utah. Utah finally goes up in my rating from 86 to 87. They really deserve it, holding UCLA to only a touchdown which came in the last 4 minutes. This was a low-scoring game as it was a really good defense versus an overall okay team. UCLA has never appeared in my rankings despite appearing in the AP pool. There was a pick six like 10 seconds into the game, which I was like, it's over, and I can't wait for Cam to return. Johnson fumbled 3 times, and he couldn't run against UCLA like he has against other teams. Running back Jalen Glover had 25 carries and only 84 yards to show for it. This team is slightly unexciting, but they win games. Number 14, Oklahoma. The Sooners did what they had to do and defended their home ground against Cincinnati last weekend. Dylan Gabriel passed for 322 yards and Marcus Major rushed for 63. Even though they only scored 2 touchdowns, I'm still content with how Oklahoma has played. I see a lot of people saying Cincinnati is bad this year, but I still find it impressive that the Sooners kept a veteran quarterback to 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Cincinnati has a good defense and still couldn't stop Oklahoma. Number 13, North Carolina. This game started with Pitt getting 2 straight touchdowns, but as you'd expect from a top 15 team, UNC's defense clutched up. They forced 4 turnovers and prevented any scores in the second half. Cedric Gray and the rest of this defense are elite, and they are probably a top 10 defense in the country. On the offense, Drake May passed for 296 yards without any interceptions, rushing for 2 touchdowns as well. Oftentimes when they're close to scoring, May takes it in, and we've seen this time and time again. I'll admit, May is amazing and UNC is still underrated by most. Number 12, LSU. Arkansas kept this close and produced a good game. My personal Heisman favorite Jaden Daniels passed for 320 yards and 4 touchdowns while rushing for 36. Logan Diggs was also able to help Daniels on the rushing game, running for 97 yards. In these past few weeks, receivers have also stepped up, most notably Malik Neighbors, who may win the best receiver of this year. The defense also played good, stopping KJ Jefferson with a game-sealing interception. All game, this team played great and they looked very much more rounded than they did in week 1. Number 11, Oregon. Yes, they're still outside my top 10, but the top 10 is just so good, I don't know who to move out of the top 10. Oregon was heavily favored in this game, and they still exceeded expectations. They kept Colorado scoreless up until the last minutes of the game, and they won the line of scrimmage battle, showing why skilled position players alone can't win a game. Oregon's defense was exceptional. They limited Colorado to 40 rushing yards, and Shedeur Sanders had his least impressive performance this game as well. Bo Nix passed it short a lot, and this quick offense has a steady pace that is hard to stop. Number 10, Washington. The Huskies jumped out to a 45-12 lead at halftime against California in another outstanding performance. Penix threw for 304 yards and 4 touchdowns. Rome Odunze himself had over 100 yards for a 4th straight game. This is one of the most efficient offenses in all of college football, and their defense is right up there statistically as well. There's nothing to hate about this team. I'm starting to believe they can score well on any team. They just make everything look easy. Number 9, Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish went head-to-head with the Buckeyes, and this was a low-scoring game. It was like 0-3 at halftime, and I didn't start watching until the second half, so I didn't miss much, I don't think. They had a chance to win, but their coverage was not good in the end, and they let up too many big plays. The run game was working really good too, but they passed a lot in the fourth quarter for whatever reason. They had a nearly 40% longer time in possession than Ohio State, but these long drives wouldn't equate to anything when they changed up their game plan and started passing. I'm not saying Sam Hartman is bad, just that SMA and Alt make this rushing game better. They don't go down in my rankings, and they're still rated 92. Number 8, Florida State. The Seminoles stayed at number 8 as they were very impressive against Clemson, winning 31-24 in overtime. Travis played well overall, and Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson combined for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. The turning point was when Karen DeLoach would get a hit on Cade Klubnik and return that fumble for a touchdown. From there, the Seminoles showed a lot of energy, outmatching Clemson in Death Valley. This was a game for the ages, and the Seminoles have now showed they can win in a tough environment. Number 7, Penn State. What a game for Penn State, shutting out Iowa 31-0. As usual, the Hawkeyes have no offense, and Penn State limited them to 1 for 9 on third downs and 66 yards of total offense. However, Penn State did struggle for a while against Iowa's front. It wasn't until the second half that Drew Aller could start diming, passing for 4 touchdowns. Singleton and Allen remained college football's best rushing duo, and this wideout was special. Number 6, USC. USC played late Saturday night, beating Arizona State 42-28. The pass defense is back to looking decent at best. That's why I've kept USC below Ohio State all season. Caleb Williams put on another Heisman-worthy performance, passing for 322 yards and 3 touchdowns. Brandon Rice was great too, catching 7 passes for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. There were many long passing plays, and I love watching USC more than most other schools because how good they are this year. Number 5, Alabama. Alabama finally dropped some of my rating for them from 93 to 92. I've kept them in my top 5 at such a high rating because this team is good defensively. They are top 3 in defense wins championships. It's just that their offense is horrific. There were so many negative yardage plays. What really made me mad was how Melville was in the shotgun at the goal line, which resulted in a loss of 12 yards. The next play was a bad run, followed by another bad run, causing them to settle for a field goal. How do you fumble that? That's such an easy touchdown. Melville was horrendous in the first half, but was actually really good in the second half. I always consider it a good thing when teams can make halftime adjustments, and Alabama should be back to normal as of the second half. Number 4, Ohio State. Ohio State isn't going up in my rankings as they were a top 4 team last week too, with a 93 rating. I've seen from the beginning that this team was good. I'm not surprised they were able to escape with a victory in South Bend. This game came down to the last 4 to 3 seconds, and I thought Notre Dame was going to steal it, not gonna lie. Estimate ran great, and Ohio State couldn't stop it. Yet, OSU kept up with them, and Cal McCord is a star. He should honestly be in the Heisman conversation for how he handled this game. He's a clear starter and always made the right play, converting on several 3rd and longs and 4th downs too. I'm surprised Notre Dame only scored 14, as I wasn't really impressed by OSU's defense this game. They earned a bye week this weekend. Number 3, Michigan. I still have them ahead of Ohio State because I don't think they've done anything to show that they're a worse team. They gave Rutgers their first loss, and it ended with a score of 31-7. Michigan started slow but kept the Scarlet Knights scoreless after the first minute. Blake Corum had 97 yards and 2 touchdowns on 21 carries as Jim Harbaugh returned to his coaching duty. Rutgers made plenty of mistakes on 3rd and 4th downs, allowing Michigan to blow them out. The Wolverines have Nebraska next week, so you can expect another victory. Number 2, Texas. They rolled past Baylor, winning 38-6. This is the same Baylor team who lost to Texas State, I believe, but a win is a win. Quinn Ewers played solid, passing for 293 yards, and Jonathan Brooks ran for 106. They scored 4 touchdowns in the first half, and the Longhorns defense limited Baylor to only converting 1 4th down on 5 attempts. This defensive line has been a problem for every opponent they face, and their rush will always be helping them win games. I haven't said it this year, but Texas is back. Number 1, Georgia. Georgia defeated UAB 49-21, looking great in the process. I still can't know why other teams even have first place votes in the AP poll. It's just silly. You can't rank teams just based off strength of schedule. We did this last year with Georgia, and they won in a blowout in the national championship. I rank teams on whether or not they're better than other teams, and Georgia is playing good against these worst teams. Every week, they show off more of what they can do. Last weekend, we saw the Bowers and Beck connection as they had their best game all year. 188 yards on the ground and 394 yards passing is insane for this offense. Even though the defense looked mid, giving 21st downs, we know there's no need for them to go all out, and I like what the Bulldogs are doing. These are my top 25 teams for week 5. Let me know your thoughts. Who would you have in the rankings that I didn't include? Who would you have higher? Who would you have lower? Thank you for watching. See you next week.